All right, welcome. It is really nice to see all of you here this afternoon. I know some of you joined us yesterday, so thank you for coming again. For those of you who were not able to join us yesterday, my name is Miss Weideman. I'm the teacher of the capstone class. We're the class giving these talks this week. And just as a super brief little intro, capstone is a really interesting class in that each student in the class gets to choose their own area to explore for the whole semester. So we do a lot of research. We write a big research paper. Students have to generate and then do some kind of project related to their learning. And then we prepare for these presentations. So this is like our last big thing that we're doing this week. Yesterday, we had a chance to learn about some global problems of world hunger and about why it's important to preserve our oceans. We also got to hear a little bit more personal information about caffeine intake. And today we're going to kind of continue our journey inward by hearing some different talks about what we believe. And I think the three students who are going today, Tian and Ellie and Annabelle, are really brave in the topics that they have selected. Because when we talk to people about what we believe and when we encourage them to think about what they believe, there's a big chance that people might disagree with us, right? Like there's a variety of beliefs represented in this room. And so it's a little bit hard to disagree with the fact that we should solve world hunger, right? But like someone's religion is really personal. So I'm really proud that they've chosen to present these topics to us. And I want to encourage you as audience members today to be able to listen to them with an open mind. You certainly do not need to come out of today agreeing with everything that they say. We will leave this room probably still having differences of opinion, but it is really valuable to be challenged to be critical thinkers. That's what our capstone students have been doing all semester in their learning and research, and we get to step into that a little bit with them here today. So I think you're going to enjoy the talks we have, and we can appreciate the bravery and hard work that have gone into them. So Tian's going to start us off, so let's welcome him to the stage.
Hello there. Let me start off with a small story of mine. I came to this school in 3rd grade and as a non-Christian, and I eventually became a Christian in 5th grade. And at that time, it was still a very new worldview to me. But as the years went by, I honestly didn't really care about my faith that much. And eventually, I reached one point in 11th grade where I was basically challenged by someone about my beliefs. So I started to really believe. To really think, did I become a Christian because it's the truth, or is it because I am in a Christian environment? So I decided to do some research. At one point, I nearly became an atheist, but eventually I did my research and I'm going to show you the results of my research. Let's get to it. Okay, today, the culture tries to promote one worldview called postmodernism, and it's basically a skeptical worldview founded as a reaction to modernism that is suspicious of meta-narratives and teaches that ultimate reality is inaccessible, knowledge is a social construct, and truth claims are political power plays. That's from the book Understanding the Times by Noble and Myers. However, this claim is very self-defeating. The claims that there is no truth or all truth is relative, let me tell you how. So there's this tactic called the Roadrunner tactic from the book I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Norman Geisler and Frank Turek that basically asks you to turn the claim on itself for self-defeating claims. So, when someone tells you the statement, "There is no truth," you respond back by saying, "Is it true that there's no truth?" If there's no truth, then the claim that there's no truth cannot be true. See how that claim gets turned on itself and debunked itself? Therefore, now we know that truth is absolute, discovered, and not invented. So, if we cannot prove this, the whole argument if Christianity is true or not is basically dead. So, I would say there now can only be one true religion, or atheism. For example, Christians believe that Jesus is their Savior and God, and believing in that would get them to heaven. But those who practice Judaism believes that believing in Jesus would get them condemned. Okay. So, let's start off with talking about the origins of the universe. The universe consists of space and matter. And it is scientifically proven that the universe has a beginning. The second law of thermodynamics states that, the energy in all the usable energy in this world is being converted to unusable energy. And then, as you know, energy is static in this world. So if the universe was to exist forever, we'd all be dead by now due to unusable energy. So there is another evidence of the beginning of the universe, which is the Big Bang. So initially there was nothing, and then suddenly the Big Bang happened, and then space, time, and matter started at that point. So because the universe, we know this by observing that the universe is expanding. And if we go back in time, it will automatically, mathematically, and logically be nothing. So there are atheists that claim that the universe is created by some elements like hydrogen, lithium, and other elements. However, especially by a Michigan State University article by Tom Oswald. And so that could not be true because you cannot have elements that exist in a spaceless environment. So we now know that the first cause is spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, and personal. It also has been noticed that the universe is very carefully designed. There are many scientific adjustments in the universe called entrophic constants. And then if you change a little of them, the Earth would already become a very unlivable place. So I'll get with two examples, although there are many of them. So the force of gravity, if you increase or decrease the force of gravity even by a bit, the sun isn't going to exist. And if that happens, neither would we. And now, for a strong nuclear force is basically the force that holds protons and electrons together. And if that strong nuclear force is increased by 50%, then hydrogen would be burnt out in the early stages of the universe, meaning we wouldn't exist. And if it was decreased by 50%, then there would be less elements formed in the universe, meaning we wouldn't exist either. atheists would try to claim that God doesn't exist by using the theory of evolution, which is discovered by a guy named Charles Darwin. He said, if it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed, which could not have possibly been formed by numerous successive slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. During his time, people believed that cells had just like one part, which is itself similar to jello. But over time, it is discovered that cells, in fact, have many different parts, like the nucleus, the mitochondria, and others too. Before that, let's talk about the two types of evolution, microevolution and macroevolution, because there's a difference between the two. Microevolution, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, says that it's a comparatively minor evolutionary change involving the accumulation of variations in populations usually below the species level. And macroevolution, the definition by the Oxford Bibliographies, is evolution above the level of species. However, as time goes on, macroevolution is... Wait, I'll just get to it. So, as we know, okay, if the cell substance, if a lot of people believe that like parts of the cell just came together and the cell started living, but if you take out the mitochondria, would the cell still have energy? I guess not. This theory is called irreducible complex. Irreducible complexity. It is an argument that states that if you take out one part of a function, the whole function stops functioning. Irreducible complexity doesn't just work on cells, it works for like tissues, organs, organ systems, and body parts too. So let's talk about one macroevolution theory of reptiles evolving into birds. So let's imagine a scenario where reptiles evolve into birds. We first need to note that scales and feathers are irreducibly complex. And if the evolution process over a long period of time started happening, the scales, as it decreases and becomes when it transforms and becomes feathers, then the problem is predators would already have an easy time going on the get-go to grab those and eat those reptiles. So, which would make those species extinct by now, if macroevolution is true. And when the wings start to form, so do you think that the reptile would just think it's in their mind, I have a dream where I could fly, and suddenly, like 10% of the wings of a regular animal started to emerge. Does it start flying? Probably not, due to irreducible complexity. Now that we have proven that a theistic being exists, but is he the Christian one or just a generic theistic God? Let's talk about Jesus. History has confirmed that he is a real person, even though there are actually still people who still believes that maybe that Jesus doesn't exist and that he's just an idea. But let's talk about why Jesus exists. So the authors wrote the New Testament in the right places, like in the Roman Empire, in Judea, Bethlehem, etc. There's the right people that are historically confirmed to exist, like Caiaphas, Caesar Augustus, and many others, and in the right time period, during the time of the Roman Empire. And there are 500 witnesses who claim that they saw Jesus. And it was his disciples that wrote down all those records of the events of Jesus' ministry and death and resurrection. So, do you think anyone would invent this? Denying their master 3 times. Or this? Oops. When their master's family believes that he's a madman and just wants to fetch him home, who would add that in order to not ridicule? Who would add that to ridicule themselves if this was a myth? If I was making this up, let me tell you, I'm just going to say something like, so Peter got confronted by people if he knew Jesus, and he claimed and proclaimed that Jesus is the Lord, and bravely proclaimed the truth and ran away spontaneously somehow just before anyone could arrest him. The end. Yes, this kind of thing would be written if this was a myth. And the cool thing is, there are even non-Christian sources to back up the validity of Jesus, like Josephus, who's a Jew, whose religion is Judaism, who's born a few years after Jesus' death, and claimed that and met many people who claimed that they saw the real Jesus, and they claimed that Jesus is a moral and wise teacher. Yeah. And ironically, there are even hostile sources who talked about Jesus. There's many to name, but I'll just name one of them, Tacitus. His viewpoint of Jesus is basically a Jewish criminal who got executed, a viewpoint from a Roman pagan. Now we have already established that Jesus existed and is a great moral teacher. But is he the Son of God? C.S. Lewis presented that there could either be 3 options. Either Jesus lied, was a madman, or is really what he claimed to be. So, if Jesus lied, by the time he got arrested, he would already have recanted his beliefs under persecution. He'd be like, okay, I lied. Please, don't execute me, please. Yeah. And knowing that he's a great moral teacher who is honest and taught people not to lie, it's very unlikely that he lied. Let's move on to the next possibility, that he is a madman. Knowing that he's a great moral teacher, and if he was a human comparing someone a lot higher than him, he would have like a high amount of insanity for someone who is moral and wise, which also isn't compatible, which only leaves to one option, that he is the Lord, like what he claims to be. And yes, miracles can exist, since the Big Bang is unscientific and supernatural, which makes sense for miracles to exist. So I would like to tell you that different people believe in different kind of stuff because of different things like family background, their friend believes that, this and that. But at the end, there could be only one true religion, which is Christianity, which is proven by the different types of evidences. So, I recently did a project that interviewing 7 different people about their faith, what they believe, why do they believe what they believe, and what if what they believe turn out not to be true. And I got a different range of answers. And then it's interesting to learn on how the different perspectives affect how they believe. So I would like to challenge to all of you who are Christians, my advice to you is this: please do not just follow Christianity just because your family believes it, you were raised in a Christian background, but believe it because it's true. To all of you who are non-Christians out there, I encourage you, please seek out what is true, and please do not just believe in things just because you know people that do, or you were raised in a non-Christian background, or etc. Thanks, guys.
Hi. Have you ever felt empty? I'm going to guess your answer is most likely that yes, because we live in an extremely unsatisfied world. New research is suggesting that we're living in historically unhappy times. And just like many of you, there was a period in my life, of several years actually, where I just felt unsatisfied and even afraid. I didn't feel like my life had clear purpose, and I wasn't sure what I was living for. I was just kind of living from day to day, trying not to focus on the feelings I kept inside. The type of feelings you get when you know your life isn't headed in the direction it should. The reason I chose this topic of what people look for to happiness was because I'm hopeful that I might be able to help people who have been or are in the same situation or mindset I was not too long ago. I want people to know that there is hope and that true joy and explicit purpose in life are accessible to all of us. The truth is, it's in everyone's human nature to seek optimal happiness in life. Everything we do is driven by our desire or need to be satisfied, and whether we realize it or not. And we all do this seeking of satisfaction in different ways. Because the world is aware of this desire, it is constantly pulling at our attention to show us ways we can truly be fulfilled. Most of the time, this pulling involves manipulation, and the beauty industry is a prime example. This industry, along with pretty much every other money-making corporation, likes to use things I like to call happiness traps, which are limiting beliefs one thinks to be true about happiness. Some beliefs include thoughts like, I can only be happy if I raise my grades or GPA, or if I finally lose the 20 pounds, I'll be satisfied. Now, I want everyone to think back to a time in their life where they set up a personal beauty or health goal for themselves. When you reached that goal, did it make you as happy as you thought it would? Or if you didn't reach the goal, do you still hold on to the hope that one day, if you lost the weight or could just look like that one celebrity, you could actually be satisfied? Part of the research that went into writing my research paper, finishing my project, and coming up with what to say in this TED Talk looked at why these fantasies of meeting certain physical standards are useless and a waste of your time. One reason is because this industry actually relies heavily on misconceptions to profit by preying on their consumers' unhappiness. They basically want their consumers to first feel unsatisfied with how they look, then to believe that the products they're selling can help cure those insecurities. Even the imagery used by the beauty industry has adverse effects by providing unrealistic standards, seen in this picture, which lower people's self-esteem and creates a strong need to purchase these beauty products to fit the ideas of modern society. It's actually the job of many advertising copywriters to manufacture commercials, posters, and magazines whose primary goal is to create dissatisfaction in whoever's consuming that media. This brings up the question, how do we escape this manipulation? What I've found to be helpful is simply knowing the truth, that being beautiful or more attractive than the average person does not make you happy. It should be relatively easy to look around and see that being attractive is both relative and temporary. Therefore, outward beauty should not be relied on for one's sense of purpose or satisfaction. In a study entitled Happiness and Despair on the Catwalk, the surprising finding was that gorgeous supermodels who made a living off of their looks suffered lower well-being and greater personality maladjustment than non-models. This proves that even the most attractive people still have problems with their self-image and are not as happy as they might seem. Another extremely popular industry that also fosters many questionable ideas about happiness is the entertainment industry. They do this by selling ideas through movies, TV shows, and music. They make us think that worldly things like love, money, and fame will provide lasting satisfaction in life. Today's music basically sells you the idea that you need to find love, to be happy, to feel complete, safe, sane, and that the only way to be happy and find peace of mind is to have the object of your obsession by your side. But why? What do these artists gain from making music with pleasant-sounding verses on the surface that hide deeply unsettling lies underneath? I think it's because music is a product, and music corporations sell you the music you're willing to listen to. The truth is, it's neither a concern nor a requirement for these artists to produce music needed to help their audience grow as people or become better life partners. The idea of finding one's Prince Charming, which is seen in almost all modern princess movies, is another clear example of society pushing the idea that love, usually romantic but can also include familial and platonic love, will lead to your happiness. Lastly, the common belief that being rich makes you happy is seen everywhere. Ideas such as how climbing the corporate ladder or fulfilling the American dream are constantly being promoted, especially among the younger generation. Even if the entertainment producers are not intentionally promoting these ideas, Mr. Steinkamp's core concepts still apply. All media is constructed for a purpose, all media has embedded values, and all media is created to gain power, profit, or influence. But how do we know that being rich or falling in love will make us happy? The research I found made it very clear that relying on these things can be very undependable. Relationships of all kind do not offer anything permanent. People die, leave, or simply don't live up to expectations, so we can't rely on them for our happiness. Expecting your partner or friends to be the sole provider of your happiness can be hazardous for both parties involved and often leads to disaster. Dating someone you've liked forever or finally becoming friends with the popular kids does not bring the satisfaction and purpose you seek. Secondly, being rich does not lead to the life many assume. While it is true that wealth can bring comfort, it has been proven time and time again that increases in income have relatively brief effects on life satisfaction. It is simply an illusion that wealth brings happiness. Multiple psychological studies have shown that the wealthier people are, the more intense negative emotions they experience. The reality is, people quickly become bored with their newfound purchases. Stories such as these are not uncommon. The majority of celebrities and those living in the upper class are generally less content with their lives than those in the working class. I want you to think back to Christmas morning when you were about 6 or 7. No matter how happy you seem when you first open your long-awaited gift of a video game or a fancy doll, this feeling never lasts for long. Most likely, by the end of the day or week, if you're lucky, you'll have moved on to thinking about the newer, better toys you will ask for next year. Almost all forms of happiness are fleeting, changing as quickly as our circumstances and interests do. And here's a quote by Benjamin Franklin that I liked, which says, "Money never made man happy, nor will it. There is nothing in its nature to produce happiness. The more of it one has, the more one wants." So how do we fix this epidemic of unhappiness and dissatisfaction within society? How do we stop ourselves from falling into these happiness traps? It's been made clear that being beautiful, rich, and finding love can't do the trick, or at least not for long. So what can we look for to find what we seek? Now I want to go back to how I started this talk, back to a time in my life where I felt alone and empty and lost. So many of the things I was relying on to bring me happiness were failing. Whenever I would go out with my friends or do the things that made me happy, for a bit, I would feel good. But as soon as I was alone and given time to think about the deeper things in life, like what I was living for, and if I really wanted my life to continue in the direction it was in, I felt that void mentioned before. I didn't know how to move on until I heard a sermon that described the fullness of joy that comes from being spiritually healthy. The pastor described how everyone has the ability to be completely and fully satisfied with a clear purpose in life through choosing to live for God instead of ourselves. From this moment until now, I've been intrigued with what people turn to fill the void they have inside and why many still choose to chase after the things they know have and will fail them. It's why I chose to focus on this topic for this class and why I hope you listen and take into consideration the results I found, which all agree with this. Spiritually healthy religious people tend to be happier than those who are unreligious. A main reason this is true is because religious people tend to look for meaning outside of themselves, making them happier. Data collected by Brian Walsh found that people devoted to a religion are likely to be less depressed and less anxious than non-believers, better able to handle the vicissitudes of life. The data I collected from multiple sources agree that, on average, the more devoted you are to pursuing a relationship with God, the more satisfied and joyous you will be. My personal experience with Christianity has proven this to be true. Spiritually healthy people can look ahead to a future and know that God is there to help and guide them, alleviating stress and therefore allowing for a better life. The happiest and most fulfilled people are those who have a deep faith in God and devotion to the life they believe God has called them. Only God can fulfill our spiritual hunger and thirst completely. And while we may be temporarily happy without God, it is only by knowing God that we can have true joy, fulfillment, and peace. Having God at the center of your life gives you a new identity, providing yet another means to lasting joy. We are all created as spiritual beings. And as creatures, I believe, created in God's image, we don't have to worry about whether or not we fit society's beauty standards. We can trust that we look exactly how God created us and instead focus on developing our character. We also don't have to worry about being loved by others because we are promised that God's love is never ending and never changing, which can't be said for any other relationship on earth. Lastly, Christians tend to be happier and more fulfilled because they can look forward to an eternity in heaven. Believers are told to not fear death in any way because of the promise given throughout the Bible. Not having to carry around the burden of uncertainty after death takes a significant burden off your shoulders. So now that you have all been given some of the happiness traps we often fall into and what I believe is the only means to true lasting happiness, I want to encourage you to look at your own life and see what you're going to for happiness. Is it friends? Is it a boyfriend? Good grades? Looking a certain way? Is it a relationship with God? Do you genuinely believe that these things are enough to satisfy you and fill the hole? If you're currently struggling to find joy or meaning in your own life, I want to encourage you to do your own research. Try out different things and see how long they truly satisfy. Maybe look into how being a Christian and reading the Bible can help refute the ideas made by happiness traps. If you'd like to take a deeper look at what the Bible says about how to be happy, you can read a devotional I made as a part of the project for this class. But yeah, I want to leave you with this, and if this is the only thing you remember from this talk, I'll be happy. Happiness traps are everywhere, and we will all fall into them at some point in our lives. But if we take advantage of the truth that there is a way for us to be truly and completely satisfied, which is through having a relationship with someone who's waiting on us to take his invitation, the spiritual completeness you will get to experience will be so much better and more reliable than anything this world has to offer. Thank you.
A few years ago, I watched a movie with my mom. It was called The Secret. I thought it looked boring at first because I was 10 at the time, so I never really understood the theme of it. After the movie ended, my mom explained to me what it meant. She said, "You can get anything you want when you put your mind to it, as long as you want it." What she said confused me, and I thought, how is it possible to wish anything you want and desire into existence? There are definitely barriers. For example, it would be something like if I wanted to win the lottery, I win the lottery. But so many people want to win the lottery, but very few actually do. From wonderpolis.org, I found that the odds of winning the lottery are 1 in 13,983,816. That is basically one person in almost 14 million people. The movie that I watched with my mom was actually based on a book called The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, and it was about the law of attraction or manifestation. The law of attraction and manifestation are essentially the same thing. What it is the belief that positive or negative thoughts bring positive or negative experiences into our lives. It is also the belief that you can get anything you want out of life just by thinking about it and putting your mind to it. Through internet searches and what I find in the media, what I gather from how people interact with manifestation all differ. Some people take a more practical approach by being more positive and saying positive affirmations towards themselves. Others create vision boards, they journal, and even utilize manifestation techniques like the 369 manifestation method or the pillow method. Personally, some of these manifestation techniques scare me and I think are a bit far-fetched. For example, the 369 manifestation technique consists of writing down what you'd like to manifest 3 times in the morning, 6 times during the day, and 9 times in the evening. It can be used to manifest anything you want, really, but some examples are manifesting someone in your life, or manifesting more money and more income. Overall, this sounds very obsessive. So yeah. My friends also talked about manifestation, and it made me even more curious about it. Why should I believe in it? I remember having a conversation with one of my friends who felt very strongly about this subject. She said, manifestation won't work if you have limiting beliefs. From betterup.com, a limiting belief is a thought or state of mind that you think is the absolute truth and stops you from doing certain things. In truth, I suppose one could say I had limiting beliefs because I couldn't really wrap my head around this idea. The idea that you could get anything you want out of life just by thinking about it, it just seemed so far-fetched. But even in the media, a lot of people have spoken out about manifestation. They mentioned that they practice manifestation in their day-to-day life. Influencers and famous people have brought it up as well. After hearing so much about this, I decided to take matters into my own hands. So these past few months, I spent some time researching more about the law of attraction and its philosophy, believing that you can get anything you want just by thinking about it. But it was difficult to find research out there that solely focused on proving that manifestation actually works. Simply put, I couldn't find any proven evidence out there that proved that we could get anything we want if we put our minds to it, just because we want it. There were blogs and websites out there that claimed it worked, but for me, it wasn't concrete evidence. However, manifestation promotes positive thinking, which has many benefits, like a lower degree of stress, as well as greater happiness, and better overall well-being. being more happy actually has a proven evidence for a setup of success as well. The whole premise of manifestation relies on positive thinking for positive results. So if we have a more positive outlook on our lives, naturally we will achieve the things we want. But the law of attraction is more than just achieving what we want and our material gains. I decided to apply what I learned with a community. Coming up with a project was challenging, to say the least. At first, I thought I could carry out a manifestation technique in Deloitte, like the 369 manifestation technique or journaling. But the more I thought about it, it would be difficult to carry out a manifestation in this school because it could come off as cult-like. So instead, I decided to expand more on the practices that manifestation promotes, like being more positive. One of the ways that you can be more positive is through practicing gratitude. I interviewed Deloitte students from elementary school to high school on things that they were grateful for, and I've noticed that most of them mentioned their loved ones. Friends and family were brought up quite a lot when I interviewed the students. Many of the students from elementary, middle, and high school mentioned the people around them when asked what they were grateful for. Manifestation promotes positive thinking, and gratitude is a form of positivity. How manifestation is often viewed is as a way to gain material success. But there's more to it than that. Positive thinking can reduce anxiety and even depression. In a randomized clinical trial in 2021 on the effects of positive thinking on stress, anxiety, depression, and quality of life among hemodialysis patients, results of the trial showed a decrease in stress and anxiety levels of patients, as well as an increased quality of life. With that said, people have differing views on the law of attraction for reasons such as that they are skeptical of its philosophy. But Christians also have differing perspectives based on their faith. Some Christians view manifestation as a philosophy that goes against the Bible, whereas some other Christians believe that it's a philosophy that aligns with biblical principles and even supports it. Many Christians disagree with the law of attraction, mainly for the reason that it could go against the Bible. They argue that the law of attraction requires you to put your faith in attracting positivity. Instead of putting your faith in God, some Christians argue that the law of attraction requires you to put your faith in the universe. Quoted from Newport Beach ChristianCounseling.com, "The universe is a created thing. It has no power at all to either bless or to curse. That power belongs to God alone. In the end, this belief is just another futile attempt to manifest happiness and prosperity through one's own efforts." However, some Christians agree with the law of attraction. They propose that the law of attraction agrees with important biblical principles. The arguments that are made are that while it is true that some aspects of manifestation are highly about achieving material success, there are other aspects of it that align with biblical principles. The Christian worldview embraces the practice of gratitude, which, as mentioned earlier, is also a form of positive thinking that manifestation promotes. Aside from aligning with biblical principles, the law of attraction also educates us that we can manifest what we desire, but we know that we give credit to God who created us, and not just manifestation or the universe alone. Even for skeptics and people who are experiencing unpromising physical or financial circumstances, practicing gratitude and finding things to look up to can give way for a greater chance for circumstances to improve. For example, it could be that you've lost a job, been in an irreversible injury, or maybe you lost a family member or close friend. At the present, it may seem that things won't change for the better, but by practicing the law of attraction and looking for things to be grateful for and be positive about can alleviate circumstances. So this concludes all I've got to say. You don't have to believe in manifestation, but I hope that there was something you've taken away from this. Whether or not you believe in the law of attraction, it promotes positive thinking, which is an important aspect of life. Positivity can be incorporated in our lives more, and it can improve how we go about things that happen to us. I'd encourage all of you to be critical thinkers and find common ground with all the different worldviews. It could be that you are a skeptic, an atheist, a Christian, or a believer of any other faith. Awareness of manifestation and acknowledgement of how it has proliferated the media, as well as hearing it from friends and family, or even hearing it for the first time in this speech, is enough to apply to your life, or if you are a skeptic, to discuss with your peers. Thank you for listening.
All right, that concludes our talks for today. I hope that as you have listened to these three students, you have been encouraged to think a little bit more critically or deeply about this question of belief. Like we said at the beginning, we do not have to walk out of here agreeing with everything that was said, but I think that when we can hear from other people about a variety of worldviews, it can help us understand our own beliefs better, and it can definitely equip us to have better conversations with each other. We're going to have our last 3 TED Talks tomorrow, so you are welcome to join us again. Thanks for being here, and we hope that you have a good rest of your afternoon.